The rain had been falling since 3 in the afternoon, and by 7 it had turned a quiet Brooklyn street into the kind of night nobody walks through unless they have to. Inside a small corner cafe, a single father was wiping down the last table when a young woman he had never spoken to before looked up from the window seat and asked him, in a voice barely louder than the rain, if he would please walk her home. Something in her eyes was wrong. Something across the street was watching her. And Nathan Hayes, a man who had spent years keeping his head down and his heart smaller than it used to be, was about to make a choice that would pull him into a danger he had no business touching. Stay with this story until the very end, hit that like button, and drop the name of the city you are watching from in the comments so I can see how far this story has traveled tonight. The rain had been falling since 3 in the afternoon, and by 7 it had turned the whole block into something that looked more like a photograph than a street. The awning over Macy's Corner Cafe sagged under the weight of water, dripping in a steady, uneven rhythm onto the sidewalk where a cigarette butt floated in a puddle near the door. Inside, under the yellow light of bulbs Nathan Hayes had been meaning to replace for 3 months, the cafe smelled of burnt sugar, wet wool, and the faint iron bite of the espresso machine he was about to shut down for the night. Nathan moved through the empty room the way a man moves through a place he has measured with his own 2 hands. He knew which floorboard creaked near the back booth. He knew that the third chair from the counter had a wobble in its left leg because a kid had kicked it too many times the previous summer. He knew the exact angle at which the front door stuck when the humidity was high, which tonight it certainly was. He wiped down the counter with a rag that had once been white and now lived somewhere in the color family of oatmeal. And he did not hum, and he did not whistle, and he did not check his phone, because none of those things were habits he had ever picked up. He was 32 years old, and people who met him tended to think he was older. It was not the face so much as the way he carried it. His dark hair had grown a little too long over the ears, and there was a pale, thin scar just above his left eyebrow that he had earned at 19 in a way he did not like to talk about. He was tall in a way that had made him self-conscious in high school and useful now, and he was lean in a way that came from working too much and eating whatever his son left on the plate. His name tag, pinned crooked to a black apron, read Nate in block letters written by a 5-year-old boy named Caleb, who had insisted on making it himself because, in his words, "Dad, you can't just have a boring one." The cafe was empty except for the woman in the window seat. She had been there since a little after 4. Nathan had noticed her because noticing people was part of his job, and also because she had ordered a small black coffee and had not touched it. The cup had gone cold near her elbow, and she had rotated it exactly once every 10 or 15 minutes, as if she were timing something with it. She had a long tan coat, a little too thin for the weather, and her hair was the color of a dark, wet leaf, pulled back from a face that looked like it had not slept properly in 3 or 4 days. On the table in front of her, pressed tight under her right forearm, was a manila folder. Not a purse, not a book, a folder. And she had not let go of it once. Nathan had worked enough late shifts to know what a woman hiding something looked like. He had also worked enough late shifts to know it was none of his business. "Closing in 10, he said, not unkindly, as he turned the little open sign around so the word closed faced the rain. The woman lifted her head. Her eyes were gray, he saw now, gray like the river in January. She smiled at him the way people smile when they have not done it in a while and are not sure their face remembers how. "Okay," she said. "Sorry. I'll be out of your way." "No rush," Nathan said, because he was not the kind of man who chased people out of anywhere. 10 means 10. He went back behind the counter and began the small ritual of closing. He dumped the grounds from the espresso machine. He rinsed the steam wand. He counted the register, slid the cash into a zippered bag, and slid the zippered bag into a small metal drawer under the sink. Macy, who owned the place and had hired him 4 years ago without asking too many questions about the gap in his employment history, trusted him with the money and with the key and with the alarm code. She was 61 years old, and she had a bad hip, and she had told him, the day she handed him the key, "I don't need a manager. I need someone who shows up." Nathan had showed up, every day, for 4 years. He was tying the trash bag when he heard her voice again. "Excuse me." He looked up. The woman was standing now a few feet from the counter. She had put her coat on and buttoned it wrong at the top, and she had her folder tucked tight under her arm. and her left hand was gripping the strap of a small crossbody bag hard enough that her knuckles had gone the color of paper. She was not a tall woman, maybe 5'5", but she was holding herself so carefully that she looked smaller. She was his age, or maybe a little younger, he thought. Mid-20s, probably. Not older. Yeah, Nathan said. Everything okay? I know this is going to sound strange. She swallowed, and the muscles in her throat moved the way they move in people who have been trying not to cry. I know you don't know me, but I was wondering if, when you close up, maybe you could, walk me home. Nathan stopped tying the bag. Outside, a car passed with its tires hissing through water, and the sound made her flinch, and she tried to cover the flinch by tucking a piece of hair behind her ear. She did not succeed. Walk you home, Nathan repeated, not as a question exactly. Only a few blocks. I live on Huron, just past the market. It's maybe 8 minutes. I'll pay you. I have. She fumbled in the crossbody bag with a hand that was shaking. I have $40. I can give you $40. I don't want your money, Nathan said. Please. The word came out quiet, and it landed on the counter between them with a weight that did not match its size. Nathan looked at her. He looked at the folder under her arm. He looked at her coat, which was too thin, and at her boots, which were good boots but scuffed at the toe in a way that suggested she had been walking for a long time before she sat down in his cafe. He looked at the cold coffee on her table. He thought about the fact that she had been there for 3 hours and had not once gotten up to use the bathroom, not once looked at her phone, not once done any of the small, bored things people do when they are killing time in a cafe. She had not been killing time, she had been hiding. Is somebody after you? Nathan said. She did not answer, which was an answer. Nathan set the bag down. He wiped his hands on his apron. He looked past her through the fogged front window at the street. He could see his own blurred reflection in the glass, and beyond that, the brick front of the laundromat across the way, and a streetlight making a cone of orange rain over a parked delivery van that had been there all afternoon. He could not see anyone standing in the cone of light. That did not mean no one was standing just outside of it. Huron and what? He said. Huron and Manhattan Avenue, the little yellow building with the fire escape out front. I know the one. Does that mean yes? Nathan exhaled. It was not quite a sigh. It was the breath of a man who had already decided and was only now catching up to his own decision. Give me 2 minutes, he said. Thank you, she said, and the relief in her voice was so naked it embarrassed both of them. Thank you. I'm sorry, my name is Elena. Nathan. I know, she said. It's on your tag. He almost smiled. He did not quite, but he almost did. Right. He moved through the rest of the closing faster than he usually did, but not fast enough to look rushed. He did not want her to feel hunted in his own cafe. He flicked off the backlights, ran a last rag over the counter, turned the thermostat down 4 degrees, and pulled his coat off the hook by the door. It was a navy blue work coat, the kind with a corduroy collar, a coat he had owned for 7 years. There was a small tear on the right cuff that he had sewn himself with black thread because he could not find navy. It did not match, and he did not care. From the top of the coat rack, he took down an umbrella that had been through worse nights than this. 2 of the ribs had bent and been bent back into something approximating their original shape. One of the panels had a patch of duct tape on the inside seam. He opened it twice to make sure the mechanism still worked. It did, more or less. It's not pretty, he said, holding it up. I'm not picky, Elena said. He set the alarm, and he turned the key in the front door until he heard the double click, and he tested the handle, which was a thing he always did because Macy had told him once that a door was only as locked as you believed it was, and belief was not the same as proof. The rain hit them the second they stepped under the awning. It was not a hard rain anymore. It was a slow, steady, cold rain, the kind that soaked you without drama. Nathan raised the umbrella and held it at an angle that covered her first and him second. She noticed. She did not say anything about it. They started walking. For the first half block, they did not speak. Elena kept her head down and her folder tight under her arm, and Nathan kept his eyes forward, but not only forward. He had learned a long time ago in a different part of his life how to look at a street without looking like he was looking at it. He watched the reflections in the shop windows. He watched the parked cars for the telltale shape of a head in a driver's seat. He watched the alley mouths they passed, because alley mouths were where trouble lived in a neighborhood like this one. Nothing, at first. So, Elena said, her voice a little too bright, a little too determined. Do you live around here? About 6 blocks that way, Nathan said, nodding with his chin. Little place above a dry cleaner. That sounds cozy. It sounds like a dry cleaner from 4 in the morning on. She laughed. It was a short, startled laugh, the laugh of a person who had forgotten they were allowed to. Right, the steam. The steam and the guy who sings in Portuguese while he works. He's not bad, actually. He does this one song that sounds like it's about a woman leaving him, but my neighbor says it's actually about a soccer team. Those can be the same thing. For some men, sure. They passed the closed front of the pharmacy. The security grate was down, and a cat was sitting inside the window between a shelf of hair dye and a stack of thermometers, watching them with the flat, unimpressed expression of a creature who had seen worse. Do you have family in the neighborhood? Elena asked, and Nathan could hear in her voice that she was reaching for normal conversation the way a drowning person reaches for a rope. He decided to throw her one. I have a son, he said. Caleb. He's 5.5. That half is very important to him. 5.5, she repeated, and for the first time since she had asked him to walk her home, something in her shoulders came down 1/2 inch. What is he like? Nathan paused. It had been a long time since anyone had asked him a question about Caleb that was not a logistics question. He's stubborn. He's got this laugh that sounds like a car that won't start. He likes dinosaurs, but only the plant eaters, because he thinks the meat eaters are, quote, being jerks. He's with my neighbor Rosa tonight. She watches him when I close. She's known him since he was 2. He calls her abuela even though she's not his grandmother, and she cried the first time he did it, and then pretended she hadn't. And his mom? Nathan kept walking. The rain dripped off one rib of the umbrella onto the sleeve of his coat. Not in the picture, he said. I'm sorry. Don't be. It's old news. They crossed the street. A garbage truck rumbled past, throwing a fine spray of rainwater over the curb, and Nathan stepped slightly in front of Elena without making a thing of it. She noticed that too. She was noticing a lot, he was starting to realize. She was not just a scared woman. She was a scared woman who paid attention. How long have you been at the cafe? She asked. 4 years. Do you like it? It's a job. That's not a yes. It's not a no either. She looked at him sideways. You don't give a lot away, do you? I give what I have. They turned onto Greenpoint Avenue, and that was when Nathan saw him. It was a small thing. If he had not been looking, he would have missed it. Across the street and about 40 feet behind them, a man in a dark jacket stepped out of the recessed doorway of a shuttered hardware store. He did not look at them. He looked at his phone, but the phone was turned off. Nathan could tell because the screen was black and the man's thumb was not moving. He was holding it as a prop. The man began to walk slowly in the same direction they were going. Nathan did not change his pace. He did not change his grip on the umbrella. He did not look again. Elena, he said, and his voice was exactly as casual as it had been a moment ago, which was the thing that made her glance up at him. I want you to do me a favor. Don't look around. Just keep walking and keep talking. She did not answer for a beat. Then quietly she said, He found me. Tell me who he is. I don't know his name. I've seen him twice before. Once outside my apartment 3 days ago, once at the deli on Franklin yesterday. White guy, dark jacket, about 6-foot baseball cap? Yes. How sure are you he's with whoever you're running from? Very. Nathan nodded once, slowly, as if she had told him a perfectly ordinary piece of news, like the weather tomorrow. He adjusted the umbrella a fraction so that the angle between them and the man across the street was broken by its edge. Are you armed? He asked. What? No. God, no. Is he? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know. Maybe. Okay. Nathan's voice was low and steady. Okay. That's okay. Here is what is going to happen. We are going to keep walking at this pace for another half block. Then we are going to turn right on Manhattan Avenue, because that's the way you go. You are going to laugh at something I say, because a woman laughing with a man she's walking with looks different from a woman being followed, and right now we want to look different, all right? All right? Something you should also know. I am not taking you home. She stumbled half a step. He steadied her with a hand at her elbow and then let go. Why not? She said. Because if he has seen you twice already at two different places, he knows where you live. Taking you to your own door is taking you to the one place he's already planning to go. I know a place that's closer and safer and has people in it I trust. Will you let me take you there instead? Elena was quiet for a long moment. Nathan could feel the rain on the side of his face because he had angled the umbrella toward her again without thinking. He could hear, somewhere 2 streets away, the bass thump of a car stereo. He could feel the small tremor in her arm where it was close to his. Why are you doing this? She said. Nathan watched the reflection of the man in a darkened shop window as they passed. The man was still there, still pacing them, still doing a bad job of pretending to be on his phone. I had a sister once, he said, and he did not say any more, and she did not ask. Okay, Elena said. Okay, I trust you. Good. Now laugh. She laughed. It was not a great laugh. It was a little too loud and a little too high. But from across the street, in the rain, through the blur of a bad night, it would do. They turned onto Manhattan Avenue. The street was narrower here and the buildings were older. Most of the storefronts were already dark. An old Polish bakery with a yellow sign, a dry cleaner, a shoe repair place that had been closed for so long its sign had faded to the color of weak tea. Halfway down the block, on the right, was the squat brick face of a 5-story tenement with a green awning that read, in letters that had been repainted so many times they were just a suggestion of letters now, East River Repair and Service. Below that, in smaller type, Deshaun Whitfield, Prop. This is it, Nathan said quietly. A repair shop? My friend lives upstairs. He owns the shop and he owns the building. He's ex-Army. He's going to be very calm about this, and that is exactly what we need right now. He guided her up the 2 shallow steps to the vestibule. Behind them, he could hear, or thought he could hear, a footstep quicken. He did not turn around. He pressed the buzzer marked 1, and then he pressed it again. A voice came through the speaker, deep and annoyed. It's pouring and it's 8 o'clock, so this had better be good. Deshaun, it's Nate. I need to come in, right now. There was exactly 1 second of silence, then the buzzer sounded, and the lock on the inner door released with a heavy, satisfying thunk. Nathan pushed the door open with his shoulder and moved Elena inside ahead of him. He closed the umbrella fast, water flying off it in a small arc. He stepped into the narrow foyer and pulled the door shut behind them, and he heard the lock re-engage, and he let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. The foyer smelled of motor oil and old carpet, and something faintly herbal, maybe oregano, drifting down from an upstairs apartment. A single overhead bulb lit the stairs. To the right, a glass-paneled door stood half open into the repair shop itself. Through it, Nathan could see the familiar clutter of Deshaun's workbench, the vise at the end, the coiled extension cords, the small radio that always played either jazz or the Mets game and nothing in between. Tonight it was jazz. Something slow and blue. Deshaun came down the stairs in 3 long strides. He was 44, built like a man who had been built, and he was wearing sweatpants, a Knicks t-shirt, and a pair of reading glasses that he had forgotten to take off. He looked at Nathan. He looked at Elena. He looked at the folder under her arm. He looked at the way Nathan was standing between her and the door. Kitchen, he said. Now, both of you. Deshaun, I'm sorry. I didn't know where else. Don't apologize to me in my own hallway, Nate. Get off the ground floor. We'll talk upstairs. He turned and led them up. Elena went second, one hand trailing on the banister. Nathan went last, and before he followed them up, he paused at the inner door of the vestibule and looked out through the small wired glass window at the street. The man in the dark jacket was standing directly across Manhattan Avenue, under the awning of the closed bakery. He was not pretending to be on his phone anymore. He was looking straight at the building. His hand was in his pocket, and Nathan did not know what was in that pocket, and he did not want to know. For a second, through the rain and the wire glass, their eyes met. The man did not move. Nathan let the curtain of the vestibule's inner door fall back into place, and he went up the stairs after Elena, and he did not run, but he did not dawdle either. On the second-floor landing, Deshaun had already unlocked his apartment door and was waiting, holding it open. In, Deshaun said. They went in. The apartment was small and warm, and surprisingly neat. A leather couch, a coffee table with a cup of tea on it, a wall of books that Deshaun would tell anyone who asked he had not read, but that Nathan happened to know he had. There were framed photos on a shelf. Deshaun in uniform, much younger, in a desert somewhere, squinting against the sun. Deshaun with his arm around a woman with a bright, wide smile, who Nathan knew had died of cancer 3 years ago, and whose name Deshaun still could not say without his jaw tightening. A picture of Deshaun's shop on the day it opened, with Deshaun standing in front of it in a button-down shirt and a hopeful expression. Deshaun closed the door and turned the deadbolt, and then, after a second's consideration, slid the chain to. "Sit down," he said to Elena, pointing to the couch. "Breathe. You're shaking." Elena sat. She did not let go of the folder. Deshaun looked at Nathan. "Tell me what I'm dealing with." "A guy followed us from the cafe. White, 6-foot, dark jacket, Yankees cap. He's across the street right now." "Armed?" "I don't know." "How's she involved?" "I don't know that either. Yet." Deshaun nodded once. It was a small, economical nod. He had spent a decade of his life receiving bad information at bad times and turning it into decisions, and that training had never fully left him. He walked to the window that overlooked Manhattan Avenue, and he did not stand in front of it. He stood to the side, pulled the edge of the curtain back with one finger, and looked out. Nathan watched him look. He watched Deshaun's face not change. "He's still there," Deshaun said. "Yeah, okay." Deshaun let the curtain fall back. He turned. He looked at Elena. His voice, when he spoke to her, was different than it had been a moment ago. It was gentler, the way a man speaks to a spooked dog. "Miss, I'm Deshaun. This is my home, and you are safe in it for as long as you need to be. Nathan is my friend. He is a good man. He does not bring trouble to my door lightly, so the fact that you are here tells me you have a real problem. I need you to tell us what it is. Not all of it. Not yet. Just the part that matters right now. Who is the man outside and who sent him?" Elena looked at him. She looked at Nathan. She looked down at the folder in her lap. Her hands were shaking so hard that the edge of the folder trembled like a leaf. "I work," she said. "I worked. For a company in Manhattan, a family-owned company. Construction contracts, mostly city jobs." She took a breath. 3 weeks ago, I found something in the books. Something that should not have been there. Invoices to a subcontractor that doesn't exist. The same name. Over and over. Millions of dollars across 2 years. "You confronted someone," Deshaun said. It was not a question. "I was stupid. I thought it was a mistake. I brought it to the CFO. He's the owner's son-in-law. He told me to forget what I saw and take a few days off. I thought he was I don't know. I thought maybe he was embarrassed. I thought he would fix it. I went home. That night, my apartment was broken into. Nothing was taken. Nothing. Not my laptop, not my jewelry. Just someone had been in there. They left the closet door open. They left a drawer pulled out. They wanted me to know." Nathan felt something old and cold move in his chest. "I didn't go back to work," Elena said. "I copied what I had. Not the originals. The originals are still on their server. But I had." She tapped the folder. Emails, screenshots, a spreadsheet I wasn't supposed to see. I don't even know if it's enough, but I have it. "And the man outside?" Deshaun asked. "I think they hired him. I've seen him twice this week, once outside my building, once at a deli. I've been sleeping at a friend's place, but she flew home to her parents on Tuesday, and I couldn't go back to my apartment, and I didn't know where to go. I walked all afternoon, and then it started raining, and I went into the cafe because the lights looked safe." She said the last word like it tasted strange in her mouth. Deshaun looked at Nathan. Nathan looked at Deshaun. A whole conversation happened in that look. A conversation that had been rehearsed over years of friendship in smaller, safer rooms than this one. "Nate," Deshaun said, "you hungry?" "No." "You should eat anyway." "Miss Elena, can I make you some tea? I have the real kind with leaves in it and the fake kind in a bag. Both work." "Fake is fine," Elena said, and her voice cracked a little. "Thank you." Deshaun moved to the kitchen. He filled the kettle. He set it on the stove. He turned on the burner. He opened a cabinet and took out a blue mug with a small chip on the rim and set it on the counter. He did all of this the way a man does small, necessary things in the middle of a crisis. because small, necessary things are how you remember that you are still a person. Nathan sat down on the arm of the couch, not quite next to Elena, not quite apart from her. He looked at his hands. They were not shaking. He was a little surprised by that. "Elena," he said. "Yes." "The name of the company. I'm not asking for any reason except to know whether I've heard of it." She said the name. It was 3 words long, a family name, a profession, and the word group. Nathan had not heard of it, but the shape of it was familiar. The shape of it was the shape of 100 other family-owned companies in this city that had been quietly building themselves into something larger than anyone outside the family realized. "Okay," he said. "Okay. You don't have to do anything more," Elena said. "You've already done more than anyone. I can call the police from here. I can go to a hotel. I can. The police are an option," Deshawn said from the kitchen, without turning around. "But you are not calling them from a cell phone in this apartment until we have had a longer conversation than we have had, and you're not going to a hotel tonight because a hotel is a camera and a credit card swipe and the kind of trail that people with money can pay someone to follow. You sleep here tonight, on this couch. Nate sleeps in the chair. I sleep with my door open and the baseball bat by my bed, which I keep by my bed anyway, so that is not a change in my routine. In the morning, we will figure out what comes next." Elena opened her mouth. She closed it. Her eyes filled. "I don't know how to thank you," she said. "Don't," Deshawn said. "Drink the tea." Nathan stood up and walked to the window. He did not stand in front of it. He stood to the side the way he had seen Deshawn do, and he pulled the edge of the curtain back with one finger. The street was empty. He looked up and down the block. He looked at the awning of the bakery. He looked at the doorway of the hardware store across the way. He looked at the deli on the corner, at the single street light with the halo of rain around it, at the dark mouth of the alley between the buildings. The man in the dark jacket was gone. Nathan stood there for a long moment, watching the place where the man had been. The rain was falling harder again. A single car passed, its tires hissing, its headlights turning the drops into short white streaks. Somewhere far away, a siren started and then stopped. He let the curtain fall. He turned back into the room. Deshawn was pouring hot water into the blue mug. Elena was sitting on the couch with the folder finally set down beside her, both of her hands wrapped around her own elbows, her shoulders pulled in tight. She looked very young in that moment, and very tired, and Nathan thought about his son, asleep right now. 2 neighborhoods away on Rosa's pull-out couch under the blue dinosaur blanket that Caleb insisted on taking with him every time he slept anywhere that was not their apartment. He took out his phone. He sent Rosa a text. "Running late. Everything okay? Please keep him tonight if you can. I'll explain tomorrow. I'm safe." He watched the 3 dots appear, then the reply. "He already asleep." "Of course. You be safe, mijo." "That's not a question." Nathan put the phone in his pocket. "Deshawn?" he said quietly. "Yeah. I know what I'm asking by being here." Deshawn set the kettle back on the stove. He turned. He met Nathan's eyes over the top of his reading glasses, which he had still not remembered to take off. "Brother," he said, "you're not asking. You're showing up. There's a difference. Go sit down." Nathan sat down. Outside, the rain kept falling on Manhattan Avenue, on the bakery awning, on the shuttered hardware store, on the empty doorway where a man in a dark jacket had been standing 5 minutes ago and was not standing now. Somewhere in this city, a phone was ringing in an office with a family name on the door, and somewhere else, a little boy named Caleb was asleep under a blue dinosaur blanket, and somewhere in between, on a leather couch in a small warm apartment above a repair shop, a woman named Elena Cross was holding a blue mug of tea in both hands and looking at a stranger named Nathan Hayes as if she had not known until this exact evening that men like him still existed. She did not say anything. Neither did he. The kettle ticked as it cooled on the burner, and the old radiator in the corner hissed, and the jazz from the shop downstairs came faintly up through the floorboards. And for the first time in a very long time, Nathan Hayes realized that his heart was beating hard, not because he was afraid, but because he was awake. The tea went cold in Elena's hands before she drank any of it. She noticed only when Deshawn came back from the kitchen with a kitchen towel draped over one shoulder and looked down at the mug and said, without making a thing of it, "I'll heat that up for you. Don't argue." She did not argue. She handed it to him with a small, apologetic smile that did not reach her eyes, and he carried it back into the kitchen and poured it out and started again. Nathan sat in the armchair across from her. He had taken his coat off at some point, and he had folded it over the back of the chair, and now he was leaning forward with his elbows on his knees and his hands loosely clasped between them. He looked, to Elena, like a man who was waiting for something, but was not in a hurry for it to arrive. He had a way of being still that was different from other people's stillness. Most people, when they were quiet because they were thinking about what to say next. Nathan was quiet because he was listening. "Can I ask you something?" Elena said. "Yeah. Earlier, when you said you had a sister once, you said it in a way that sounded like she wasn't." She stopped. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't ask." "She's not," Nathan said. "She passed, a long time ago. I don't mind that you asked." "What was her name?" He looked at her for a second before he answered. It was the first time all night that his face had softened in a way she could see, and the softening did not last long, but it was there. "Madeline," he said. "Maddie. She was 21. "I'm sorry." "Yeah, me too." Deshawn came back with the mug. He set it down on the coffee table on a coaster that had a faded picture of a lighthouse on it. "Drink it this time before I have to pour out a third one," he said. "I've got standards about how many times a man makes tea in his own house for one person in 1 hour." "I'm sorry," Elena said. "I was joking. Drink it." She picked it up. Her hands had almost stopped shaking. Almost. Deshawn sat down on the other end of the couch. Not too close to her, but not so far that the distance made a point of itself. He had not taken his reading glasses off. He seemed to have forgotten they were on his face. He folded his arms across his chest and looked at Nathan, and Nathan met his eyes, and something was decided between them without either of them saying a word. "All right," Deshawn said. "We need to talk about tonight, and then we need to talk about tomorrow, and I want to get the first part done before the second part starts scaring anybody. Elena, I need to see what's in that folder. Not because I don't trust you, because if I'm going to let you sleep under my roof, I need to know what kind of men are standing on the other side of my door." Elena looked at the folder on the couch beside her. Her hand went to it, and then it hesitated there, hovering over the manila cover, the way a hand hovers over a stove when you are not sure how hot the burner is. "Most of it won't make sense to you," she said. "I didn't finish college either," Deshawn said. "Try me." "No, I didn't mean that. I meant—" She stopped. She closed her eyes for a second. When she opened them, they were wet, but she did not cry. "I mean, the numbers are layered. You have to know what you're looking at. I'll walk you through it. Just don't touch the pages, please. Some of them are the only copies I have." Understood. She opened the folder carefully, as if the paper might crumble, which it would not, because it was printer paper less than a month old. But she treated it like an artifact anyway, because to her, it was. She had printed most of it at 2 in the morning in a 24-hour copy place in Queens because she was afraid to print it at the office and afraid to print it at home. The clerk behind the counter had been watching a soccer game on his phone and had not looked at her once, and she had tipped him $15 in cash for his lack of curiosity. "This is an invoice," she said, turning the first page so Deshawn and Nathan could both see. "From a company called Meridian Structural Consulting. The address is a P.O. box in a UPS store in Jersey City. The phone number on this invoice rings to a voicemail that just says, 'Leave a message, no company name.' I called it 3 times. No one ever calls back." "Go on," Deshawn said. "Meridian has been invoicing my company, Corbin Sterling Group, for consulting services on city contracts for the last 2 years and 4 months. The invoices come in monthly. Always a different project, always a different dollar amount, always between $60,000 and $120,000. Always paid within 7 business days, which for anyone who works in accounts payable is absurd. Real vendors wait 60, 90 days. Meridian gets paid in a week, every time." Nathan had been watching her face while she spoke. Not the pages. Her whole body had changed when she started explaining. Her shoulders had lifted, her voice had steadied. She stopped looking like a scared woman on a couch, and she started looking like what she had actually been before any of this started. A person who knew her work. "How much in total?" Deshawn asked. "I stopped counting at $2.6 million. He whistled, a low, soft whistle, and leaned back on the couch. And the consulting they're supposed to be doing doesn't exist. I pulled the project files for 6 different city contracts that were billed for Meridian Consulting. No one at my company has ever met anyone from Meridian. No one has emailed them. No one has ever gotten a report from them. The line items on the city side just say third-party structural review, which is a thing that happens on those projects, so it doesn't look strange from the outside. It only looks strange if you're the one cutting the checks and you notice the same vendor getting paid every month for reviews that, as far as anyone can tell, never happened. Who signs off on the payments? 2 signatures. One is an AP clerk. The other is the CFO. Her name is Vivian. She's married to the owner's daughter. She's the one I went to. Nathan looked up at that. You said earlier it was the son-in-law. I said the son-in-law. I'm sorry, I'm not thinking straight. It's the daughter-in-law. Vivian is married to Caroline, who is the owner's daughter. She rubbed her forehead. I'm sorry. I'm mixing people up. I haven't slept. It's fine, Nathan said. Keep going. Vivian has been CFO for 5 years. Before that, she was a forensic accountant at a firm in Midtown. I looked her up when I first started because I wanted to know who I was reporting to. She is extremely good at what she does, which is, in retrospect, the problem. Deshaun made a small sound, not quite a laugh, not quite a sigh. The best thief is the one with the key to the safe. Yeah. Why her, do you think? Why not just a regular grifter? I don't know. I've had 3 weeks to think about it, and I still don't know. My best guess is that it's not just her. My best guess is that somebody in the family needed money out of the company without it showing up as a draw, and Vivian was the person who could design a channel for that money that wouldn't set off anything on the audit side. But that's a guess. I'm an accountant, not a detective. Detectives don't catch this stuff, Deshaun said. Accountants do. Elena gave him a look that was almost a smile. Then she closed the folder. There's one more thing, she said quietly. In the emails. Not in the numbers. In the emails. She tapped the folder once, not opening it. 3 weeks ago, after I went to Vivian, she emailed someone. I wasn't supposed to see the email. It came to me by accident. She meant to send it to an assistant who has almost the same first name as I do. Elena and Elaine, the assistant. Her work email is just 1 letter different from mine. Vivian dropped the wrong one in. What did it say? Elena took a slow breath. It said, "The cross problem is resolved. She's taking time off and she's not going to say anything. I handled it." The room got very quiet. And under that, Elena said, someone wrote back. It was a 3-word reply. The email address was just a string of numbers at a free provider. 3 words. Make sure of it. Nathan stood up. He did not do it dramatically. He did not push the chair back. He just rose slowly, the way a man rises when he has been sitting for too long, and he walked to the window, and he stood to the side of the curtain and looked out. The street was still empty. Or at least it looked empty, which was a different thing. He stood there longer than he needed to. Deshaun watched him from the couch and did not say anything. "Nathan," Elena said. "Yeah, I didn't know. When I asked you to walk me home, I didn't know it was this bad. I thought the guy outside the cafe was a scare tactic. I thought if I just got home and locked the door, I didn't know someone had written 'make sure of it' about me. I only saw that email 2 days ago. I keep thinking I should have told you before you agreed. You have a son." "I have a son," Nathan said. "I should have told you. You should have told me, but I would have done it anyway." He turned from the window. The softness she had seen on his face earlier when he said his sister's name was not there now. What was there instead was not hardness exactly. It was something simpler. It was a decision. "Here's what I think," Nathan said. "I think you are not safe anywhere on a map tonight. I think the guy outside the cafe was not the only one. I think there's at least one more, and he's the one who was going to be waiting at your apartment while the first guy made sure you got there. I think you did the right thing when you asked me, and I think you did the right thing when you trusted me to change the destination. And I think that right now, sitting in this apartment, we have a window of maybe 6 hours before whoever is running this decides that you've gone dark and starts trying to find out where." "How do they find out where?" Elena said. "Credit cards, phone, a friend they lean on. Your mother, if you have one." "My mother lives in Michigan." Then that's where they'll start making phone calls at 7 a.m. tomorrow, pretending to be someone from your office who just wants to make sure you're okay. Oh, yeah. Deshaun had stood up too. He went into his bedroom and came back a moment later holding a small black pouch, the kind that looks like a shaving kit and is not. He set it on the coffee table and unzipped it without opening it and slid something out halfway so that the two of them could see. It was not a gun, it was a small old flip phone and a car charger and 3 unopened prepaid SIM cards in blister packs. I've had these for a long time, Deshaun said. I keep them for reasons that are my own. Elena, you're going to turn off your phone tonight, all the way off, and you're going to take the battery out if it has one that comes out. And if it doesn't, you're going to put it in that kitchen drawer there and leave it. He pointed. Tomorrow we'll figure out what to do with it. For now, you use this one, and only to call one person, and only if I say it's time to call that person. Who's the person? Elena asked. That's what we're going to talk about next, Deshaun said. He sat down again. Nathan came back from the window and sat in the armchair. Elena looked at them both. In the soft lamp light of the small room, the three of them could have been any 3 people sitting up too late talking about any ordinary thing, and none of them looked quite like what they were, which was 2 men and a woman deciding together how to save her life. You have 3 options that I can see, Deshaun said. Option 1 is the police, not a phone call, not a 911 call. An in-person walk-in at a precinct, first thing in the morning, with the folder. The advantage is that it's fast and it's official. The disadvantage is that we don't know who in that precinct might take a courtesy call from somebody at your company. I'm not saying all cops are dirty. I'm saying we don't know which ones aren't, and we have one chance. Option 2 is a lawyer. Specifically, a lawyer who does whistleblower cases. There are maybe 6 in this city who are any good at it. They know how to walk you into the right door at the right federal agency so that what you hand over is protected, and so is your name, at least for a while. That takes a little longer, maybe a day, maybe 2. The advantage is it's the safest long game. The disadvantage is that you have to survive the next 48 hours. Option 3 is press, a reporter. Somebody at the Times or the Post or a specific investigative outfit that does this kind of thing. That's the fastest way to make you famous, which is, weirdly, the safest thing you can be in this situation. It's hard to make a famous witness disappear, but the stuff in that folder needs to be bulletproof because the second it runs, your company's lawyers are going to come for it, and you, and anybody who handled the story. How do you know all this? Elena said. I don't, Deshaun said. I know some of it. The rest I've read. The rest is common sense. I fixed a TV once for a lady who worked at a paper, and she told me over 2 years of coming into my shop with things that needed fixing. You'd be surprised what people tell you when you don't act like you want to know. Elena looked at Nathan. What do you think? She said. I think lawyer, Nathan said. I think lawyer first, then whatever the lawyer says. I'm not going to pretend I know the city machine. But I know that once something like this gets into the system in the wrong way, it doesn't come back out. A lawyer is the one person whose job is to keep you alive and on the record at the same time. I don't have a lawyer, Elena said. I might, Deshaun said. Both of them looked at him. There's a woman who comes into my shop. Her name's Hollis. She brings me vacuum cleaners, and she talks. She's 62 years old, and she's been practicing whistleblower and employment law in this city since before most of the lawyers who do it now were born. She's not on the internet much. She doesn't advertise. She takes the cases she wants to take. I have her home number because one time her vacuum caught fire in my shop, and I had to call her to come pick it up, and she gave me her cell and told me to use it if I ever needed anything that wasn't a vacuum cleaner. Will she pick up at 9 p.m. on a Wednesday? Nathan said. She'll pick up at 4 in the morning if she feels like it, and she'll ignore you at noon on a Tuesday if she doesn't. That's Hollis. Call her, Elena said. Her voice was steadier than it had been all night. Something had shifted in her in the last 10 minutes, Nathan noticed. A person who had spent 3 weeks making decisions alone in her own head had just had the weight of those decisions divided into 3 pieces and put on 3 different pairs of shoulders, and the relief of that was visible in her whole body. Deshaun dialed. He put the phone on speaker and set it in the middle of the coffee table. It rang 4 times, and on the 5th ring, a woman answered. Her voice was low and smoke rough, a voice that had lived through things. This is Hollis. Miss Hollis, it's Deshawn Whitfield from the repair shop on Manhattan Avenue. Deshawn. Her voice warmed a quarter of an inch. Is my mixer dead again? No, ma'am. It's not that kind of call. I have a young woman in my apartment. Her name is Elena Cross. She has documentation of what she believes is a multi-year invoice fraud scheme at her employer. 3 weeks ago, she reported it internally. Since then, her apartment has been broken into, she has been followed on at least 3 separate occasions, and tonight a man tailed her from a cafe in my neighborhood right up to the front of my building. She is currently not going home. I'm calling you because I believe her, and because my friend here, Nathan, believes her, and because I think she needs a lawyer in her corner before sunrise. Am I calling the right number? It was Samusamae. There was a pause on the line. Deshawn, Hollis said slowly, you are either calling the exactly right number or exactly the wrong one, and I am going to need about 90 seconds to decide which. Is the young woman there with you? I am, Elena said. Miss Cross, I'm going to ask you 3 questions. Please answer them briefly. First, the documents you have. Are they originals or copies? Copies. Where are the originals? On my company's server. I did not download them. I took screenshots on my personal phone, airdropped them to my personal laptop and printed from there, then deleted them off both devices. The printing was done at a copy shop, not at home. Good. Second, have you signed anything since you reported this internally? A new NDA, a severance paper, a performance review. Anything your HR department asked you to sign in the last 21 days? No, I haven't been back to the office. They've called me twice. They said to take time off and come in when I was ready. Good. Third, is anyone in your family, anyone, employed by or financially dependent on anyone connected to Corbin Sterling Group? A brother, a cousin, a parent, anybody? Elena blinked. How did you know the name of the company? I didn't. Deshawn didn't tell me. You just did. Please answer the question. Elena looked at Nathan. Nathan nodded. No, she said. No one in my family works with them or near them. My mother is a retired music teacher in Michigan. My father passed when I was 14. My older brother is a park ranger in Colorado. All right. Hollis's voice had changed again. It was sharper now, more professional, and also in a strange way kinder. Miss Cross, I'm going to tell you what is going to happen. Tonight you are going to stay where you are. You are not going to contact anyone at your company, not even to say you are sick. You are not going to touch your phone. Tomorrow morning at 7 a.m., a car is going to arrive at Deshawn's address. The driver will be a man named Martin. He is my investigator. He has been doing this kind of work for 26 years. He is a large human being with the temperament of a slow river, and he is not armed because he does not need to be. He will drive you and the documents to my office in downtown Brooklyn. We will spend the morning going through everything. By lunchtime, I will know whether we are going to the Attorney General's office, the Southern District of New York, or both. You do not need to decide anything before morning. You need to sleep. Miss Hollis, Elena said. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I'm expensive. Although not tonight. Tonight is free because Deshawn once unjammed my vacuum at a moment of acute emotional crisis. Put him back on. Elena slid the phone over. Deshawn picked it up off speaker and held it to his ear. Yeah. He listened for about 20 seconds. His face did not change. Then he said, I understand. Yes, understood. Thank you, Hollis. He hung up. What did she say just now? Nathan asked. She said, don't open the door for anyone but Martin, and if anyone else tries to come in before 7, she's on my cell and the police are on hers. He put the phone down. She also said she's been waiting for a case like this for about 2 years, and that she doesn't know yet if I just handed her the best Tuesday of her career or the worst one. It's Wednesday, Elena said, almost laughing, almost crying, somewhere in between. It's Wednesday night. Yeah, well, Hollis lives in her own week. Elena put her face in her hands. She did not sob. She just pressed her palms against her eyes, and her shoulders rose and fell, once, twice, 3 times. When she took her hands away, she looked 10 years younger and 10 years older at the same time, which is a thing that can happen to a person when a weight they have been carrying alone is briefly set down. I'm going to try to drink this tea, she said, before someone makes a 4th one. Smart, Deshawn said. She drank the tea. It had steeped too long and it was too hot, but she drank it anyway. Nathan sat in the armchair and watched her, and did not watch her, the way a man watches a fire he has just barely kept from going out. After a while, Deshawn stood up and went to a small linen cabinet in the hall and came back with a folded blanket and a pillow. He set them on the end of the couch. "You're going to sleep here tonight," he said to Elena. "You keep the lamp on if you want. Bathroom's right there. I'm going to leave my door open. Nathan's going to take the chair." "I'll be fine in the chair," Nathan said. "He will not be fine in the chair," Deshawn said to Elena. "He will pretend he was. That's a different thing. If he starts snoring, kick him." "I don't snore," Nathan said. "He snores," Deshawn said. "Not loudly, but he snores." Elena laughed. It was a small, real laugh this time, not the one she had performed on the street to throw off a man in a dark jacket. Deshawn turned off the overhead light and left the lamp on the side table on. He stood in the middle of the room for a moment, looking at the two of them. "I'm going to check the shop," he said. "I'm going to walk around downstairs, look at the back door, look at the basement door, and make sure the alley gate's still padlocked. I'll be 10 minutes. Nate, if I'm not back in 15, you call me. And if I don't pick up, you call Hollis on her cell, and the number's on the fridge on a post-it that says Hollis cell." "Got it," Nathan said. Deshawn went out. The 3 deadbolts on the apartment door slid and clicked behind him. The apartment felt different when it was just the two of them. Smaller, warmer, quieter, in a way that was not a relief but a noticing. Elena was sitting on the couch with the blanket pulled over her lap. She was looking at Nathan, not in a romantic way, not in a needy way, just looking, the way a person looks at someone who is not what they expected. "Can I ask you another personal question?" she said. "Yeah." "Were you ever something else before the cafe?" Nathan looked at his hands. "I was," he said. "What were you?" "I was an EMT in Queens for about 7 years. I was also a person who was not very good to himself. I lost the job, not for any one thing, for a lot of small things that added up. I got sober 4 years ago, a few months before Caleb was born. His mother had him, and then left him, and then signed papers. I got lucky. Macy at the cafe took a chance on me when no one else would. I don't do anything anymore that I used to do, except this. Except this. Yeah, walking people through things, keeping them calm, making decisions for them when they can't. That part I guess I never lost." "Your sister," Elena said gently. "She died of an overdose." Nathan looked up. He did not answer. He didn't need to. "I'm sorry," Elena said. "Don't be sorry. Be alive. That's all any of us can do for each other." Elena nodded. She looked down at her mug. It was empty. "You know what's strange?" she said. "What?" "I've been terrified for 3 weeks. For 3 weeks I've been so scared I couldn't eat. I lost 7 pounds in 21 days. I haven't slept more than 2 hours at a stretch. I was walking around today with this." She gestured to the folder, thinking, "I am going to die over a spreadsheet. I am going to die because I looked at a spreadsheet and didn't look away. And now I am sitting on a couch in an apartment I have never been in before, with 2 men I did not know 6 hours ago. And for the first time in 3 weeks, I am not terrified. I am still scared. I am just not terrified. That is such a different thing, and I didn't know it was a different thing until right now." Nathan looked at her. He did not say anything for a moment. "That's the difference between being alone and not being alone," he said. "It doesn't make the thing go away. It makes you not the only one carrying it." Yeah. Outside, the rain had slowed. It was no longer a downpour. It was a steady, gentle, almost polite rain now, the kind that sounded like fingers tapping somewhere very far away. The radiator in the corner hissed. The jazz from the shop downstairs had stopped, because Deshawn must have turned it off on his way through. After a minute, Elena said, "Tell me about Caleb." "What about him?" "Anything. I'd like to hear about him, something normal." Nathan thought for a second. He leaned back in the chair. "Last week," he said, "he told me he was going to be a marine biologist and a firefighter at the same time. When I asked him how that was going to work, he told me, and I'm quoting, that the fires are for weekends and the fish are for weekdays, and the fish don't mind a little smoke." Elena laughed. It startled her. A little, the way real laughter startles people who have forgotten they can do it. He sounds amazing. He's a pain. But yeah, he is. He looks like you? He has his mother's eyes. He has my. I don't know. He has the way I walked when I was little, apparently. My mother told me that. She said the first time I brought him over, she watched him cross the living room and said, "That's your walk, Nate." I didn't know I had a walk. But I guess I do, and so does he. Your mother's around. She's in Yonkers. She comes over Sundays when she can. She's a tough woman. She had a hard time when I was using. She had a harder time when Maddie died. But she's around, and Caleb has her, and that matters. It matters a lot, Elena said. Yeah. She did not say anything for a while after that. Nathan thought she might have fallen asleep sitting up, but when he looked over, she was just looking at the ceiling, her head resting back against the couch, her dark hair spread a little on the pillow Deshawn had set behind her. Nathan, she said softly. Yeah, if something happens to me, tomorrow or the day after or next week, I want you to know that what you did tonight was enough. You don't owe me anything else. You didn't sign up for any of this. You walked me to a door, and then you walked me to a different door, and that's already more than anyone has ever done for me in my whole life. I need you to know that in case it turns out this doesn't end well, I need you to be able to tell yourself you did enough, because you did. Nathan looked at her for a long moment. Elena, he said, I'm not going to promise you it ends well. I don't make promises I can't keep, but I can tell you I'm not leaving, not tonight, not tomorrow, not until you are standing in a place where the people around you are paid to keep you standing. After that, if you want me to go, I'll go. Until then, you don't have to carry the next part alone. She closed her eyes. A single tear went down her cheek and stopped at her jaw. She did not wipe it away. Thank you, she said. You're welcome. The three deadbolts turned in the door. Deshawn came back in with a rein on his shoulders and a small screwdriver in his hand. He looked at the two of them. He looked at the tea mug. He looked at the blanket. Back door's fine. Alley gate's fine. Basement's fine. There was a guy in a gray sedan parked on Ash Street 2 blocks over. I walked past him like I didn't see him, and I got his plate. Probably nothing. Probably something. Either way, we'll let Hollis's guy Martin deal with it in the morning. He set the screwdriver down on the counter. I'm going to bed. You two can keep talking or not. The couch is hers, the chair is his. Don't fight about it. We weren't, Elena said. Good, don't start. He went into his bedroom. He did not quite close the door. Nathan reached over and turned the lamp down another notch, so that the room became a warm, low, golden glow. He sat back in the chair and folded his arms across his chest and extended his legs out in front of him, and he did not close his eyes because he was not going to sleep. Not really. Not tonight. He was going to sit there in the half-dark and listen to the rain and to the radiator and to the small sound of Elena's breathing as it slowed and evened out and eventually, after a long time, became the breathing of a person who had, against all odds, managed to fall asleep. He watched her for a moment, and then he looked away because watching a sleeping person for too long is a thing men don't do, not even good ones, not even when they mean well. He looked at the window instead. Through the edge of the curtain, he could see a thin slice of Manhattan Avenue, an empty street, a lamppost, a puddle, the front of the closed bakery. Nobody under the awning, nobody in a dark jacket, nobody at all. He watched it for a long, long time. Somewhere past midnight, a car drove by slowly. Too slowly. Nathan's whole body went still in the chair, the way a cat's body goes still when it has heard a bird that has not heard it yet. The car passed. It did not stop. It turned the corner at the end of the block and was gone, and in its place was only the wet hiss of the tires on the pavement, fading, and then the rain again, softer now, and then nothing. Nathan let out a long, slow breath. On the couch, Elena did not stir. The blanket had slipped down off her shoulder, and Nathan, very carefully, stood up and crossed the room and pulled it back up to her collarbone without waking her. She made a small sound, a half sound, and turned her face slightly toward the back of the couch, and she kept sleeping. Nathan went back to the chair. He did not sleep. He sat in that chair until the dark outside the window began, imperceptibly, to thin out into the gray that comes before a gray dawn in a city that has been raining all night. He sat in that chair, and he listened to a woman he had not known this morning breathe in and out, and he listened to his friend snore gently through a half-open door, and he listened to his own heart, which was still beating the way it had been beating since he first saw the man in the dark jacket on the other side of the street, hard and steady and awake, awake, awake. At 5:30, he heard the first garbage truck of the morning turn onto the block. At 5:45, the radiator clanked once, loud, and Elena shifted on the couch but did not wake. At 6:58, a black sedan pulled up to the curb outside, and a very large man in a very plain coat got out of the driver's seat and stood on the sidewalk, looking up at the second-floor window, waiting. He did not ring the buzzer. He did not look at his phone. He just stood there in the slow gray rain with his hands loose at his sides, and he waited, like a man who had waited for a lot of people in a lot of doorways in his life and knew the job. Nathan looked at him through the edge of the curtain. Then he turned and, quietly, he woke Elena up. She came awake the way people come awake when they have been running from something in their dreams all at once, with both hands already moving toward the folder on the coffee table before her eyes had even properly opened. Nathan was crouched next to the couch, with one hand raised, palm out, the way you calm an animal. "Easy," he said. "Easy. It's me. It's 7. There's a car downstairs." Elena sat up. Her hair was in her face. Her left cheek had a crease in it from the pillow. She looked, for a second, like a person who had forgotten where she was, and then the whole thing came back to her. Nathan could see it happen, and her face closed up again around the weight of the last 12 hours. "Martin," she said. "I think so. Big guy, black coat, just standing on the sidewalk. How long has he been there?" "About 2 minutes." She pushed the blanket off. She stood up, shaky on her feet, and for a moment she had to hold the arm of the couch while her blood caught up with her body. I need 2 minutes. Bathroom." "Take 5. She went. The bathroom door closed. Nathan heard water running, and then heard it stop, and then heard her cough once, quietly. The cough of a person trying not to be heard. He pretended not to hear it. He walked to the window again and looked out. The man on the sidewalk had not moved. He had not taken out a phone. He had not looked at a watch. He was just standing there in the thin gray rain with his hands at his sides, and something about the economy of his stillness made Nathan trust him before he had heard the man say a word. Deshawn came out of the bedroom already dressed, in jeans and a dark sweater and a pair of work boots he had not bothered to lace. His face had the look of a man who had not slept any more than Nathan had, and had decided to be fine with that. "That him," he said, joining Nathan at the curtain. "Looks like it. He's old school. He's not going to ring until 7 sharp. Deshawn squinted at his watch, which is in 40 seconds. "Does Hollis always send him?" "For the serious ones, she does. I've met him once. Quiet guy. Used to work cold cases for the state police upstate before he retired into this." At exactly 7, the buzzer rang. One short press. No follow-up. A man who knew that people are either awake or not awake, and that pressing the button twice did not change the answer. Deshawn hit the speaker. "Yeah. Martin. Here for Miss Cross. Come on up." Deshawn hit the door release. He heard the downstairs lock give, and he heard the heavy, unhurried sound of a big man climbing stairs he had climbed 1,000 other staircases like. A moment later, there was a quiet, measured knock on the apartment door. Deshawn opened it on the chain first, looked, then slid the chain and opened it the rest of the way. Martin was in his late 50s, maybe 60, and he was built like a man who had once played offensive line and then stopped playing and not stopped eating, but not in a soft way, in a way that just meant there was more of him now than there used to be. He was taller than Nathan, who was not short, and his eyes were pale and friendly and completely unimpressed, the way a man's eyes get when he has been threatened often enough that the threat has stopped mattering to him. He was holding a paper bag from a bakery and a cardboard tray with 3 coffees in it. "Morning," he said. "Brought breakfast. Hollis said nobody's going to be able to think before they eat. I got 4 pastries because I don't know what anybody likes." He lifted the bag slightly. "There is a 5th one that is for me. I'm warning you now. Nobody touches the almond croissant or I won't drive." Deshawn laughed. Once. A real laugh. "Kitchen table. Come in." Martin stepped inside. He noticed Nathan and held out a hand. "Martin Reyes. Nathan Hayes. You the man who walked her out of the cafe last night?" "Yeah." "Good." Martin said it simply, the way a man who had spent 30 years watching people not help each other said it when he finally met someone who had. That's good. Elena came out of the bathroom. She had washed her face and pulled her hair back, and the few minutes of splashing cold water on herself had done what such minutes do, which was not to make her look rested, but to make her look like someone who had decided to pretend she was. She saw Martin, and she stopped in the hallway for half a second, and Nathan watched her make a small internal calculation, taking in his size, his calm, his coffee tray, his paper bag, and deciding, on the evidence, to trust him. "Miss Cross," Martin said. "I'm Martin. Hollis sent me. I'm going to drive you and whatever you're carrying to her office this morning. Before we go anywhere, you eat something. Hollis's rules, not mine. If she smells coffee on your breath and nothing else when you walk in, she'll make me drive back out for bagels, and I've been doing that route long enough." Elena almost smiled. "What kind of pastry?" "1 chocolate croissant, 1 cheese Danish, 1 cinnamon twist, 1 plain croissant. The almond croissant is mine. I am putting that on the record." "Plain croissant," Elena said. "Plain croissant it is. Sit." They sat. Deshawn pulled 4 mismatched plates out of a cabinet. Nathan took the cinnamon twist because Caleb liked them, and picking it up reminded him that he had a son somewhere across the borough who would be waking up soon and asking Rosa, with great seriousness, whether Dad was coming to get him before school. He needed to make a call. He needed to make several calls. But first he needed to watch Elena eat, because she had not eaten since, as best he could tell, yesterday morning. And a woman who had not eaten was a woman who could not think. And a woman who could not think was about to walk into a room where thinking was the only thing that would keep her alive. "Miss Cross," Martin said, tearing a piece of his almond croissant with surgical care, "while you eat, I'm going to tell you what the day looks like. Stop me with any question. Nothing is stupid. Nothing is too small." "Okay, we're going to leave here in about 20 minutes. I parked where I parked for a reason. We are going to walk out the front door together, and you are going to walk to my right and slightly behind me, not because I'm being dramatic, but because it's harder for a camera on the other side of the street to get a clean look at your face from that angle. You are going to get into the back seat, passenger side, and you are going to keep the folder flat on your lap. Not on the seat, on your lap. If anything happens between here and the car that I do not like, you drop the folder in the footwell and you get down below the window line. I will handle the rest. Yes or no?" "Yes?" "Good. We are going to drive to Hollis's office, which is about 19 minutes from here in this traffic. I am going to take a route that is not the most direct route. I am going to drive past Hollis's building one time before I park. And if anything about the block looks wrong to me, I am going to keep driving and call her, and we are going to go to a different place she and I have already discussed. You do not need to know where that place is unless we need to go there, because if you do not know where it is, you cannot tell anyone, not even accidentally. Yes or no?" "Yes." "Good. When we get to Hollis, she is going to sit with you for about 4 hours. Some of that is going to be her reading what you brought. Some of it is going to be her asking you questions you have already answered once, because she is going to ask them again to see if the second answer matches the first. That is not her not trusting you. That is her working. Let her work. When she is done, she is going to tell you what she thinks the right first door is. There are 2 possibilities. She has already been on the phone this morning with a friend at the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District who owes her, and she has already been on the phone with a friend at the State Attorney General's office who also owes her. Hollis has a lot of friends who owe her, which is why Hollis is still Hollis. By lunchtime, one of those doors is going to open, and you are going to walk through it. Elena had not touched her coffee. She picked it up now. It was still hot. She drank a small sip. "What about Nathan?" she said. Martin looked at Nathan. "You want to come?" "Yeah." "You don't have to." "I know." "You got a job." "I called the owner at 6:15 this morning. She said take the day. She said take the week if I need it. She also said, in her exact words, if a man in a black jacket shows up in my cafe, I am hitting him with a rolling pin, and I want you to know that before you decide anything. So," Martin laughed. It was a real laugh, warm and rough. "I like this owner." "Everybody does?" "Then you come. You sit in the waiting room while Hollis works. When she's ready for Miss Cross to go to the next place, you can come, or you can go home to your boy. That's your call." Nathan nodded. Elena set her coffee down. She looked at Martin across the small table. I need to ask you something. Ask. Is this the kind of thing you've done before? It is. How many times? Martin thought for a second. He was not a man who exaggerated. 40-some. The witness safe movement part, I mean. The working whistleblowers part, I mean. Not counting the regular investigations, those I don't count anymore. How many times did it go badly? Martin looked at her. He did not look away, and he did not soften his face, and he did not make the answer easier than it was. Twice, he said. And both times it went badly because the person in your seat decided somewhere along the way to do a thing Hollis told them not to do. Once, it was a phone call the woman made to her own mother because she wanted to tell her mother not to worry. Once, it was a man who went back to his apartment to pick up a photograph of his wife because she had passed, and he could not stand the idea of leaving her picture in a place he was not going to return to. I understood both of those decisions. They still went badly. So when Hollis tells you don't do a thing today, what she means is don't do it today. Not because she doesn't respect you, because she respects whoever is trying to hurt you, and she doesn't want them to win. Understood. All right. He wiped his hands on a napkin. Eat the croissant, Miss Cross. You're going to need it. She ate the croissant. She drank the coffee. By the time they were ready to leave, she had put on her coat, which had dried overnight on a hook near the radiator, and she had combed her hair with her fingers, and she had picked up the folder and held it flat against her body with both hands, the way Martin had told her to. Nathan put on his own coat. Deshawn walked them to the door. At the threshold, Deshawn turned to Elena. Miss Cross, he said. Yes. Last night you told Nate thank you. You don't need to thank me for anything you're about to do today. All I did was make tea and call a woman whose vacuum cleaner I once fixed. What you're doing is bigger than any of that. Whatever happens. You did right by walking into that cafe. You did right by asking him, and you're doing right now. Elena's eyes filled. She did not cry. She nodded once, hard, like she was nodding through a pain. Thank you, she said anyway. Go. They went down the stairs. Martin went first, and Nathan went last. In the vestibule, Martin paused and looked through the wired glass window at Manhattan Avenue for about 6 seconds, scanning it the way Deshawn had scanned it the night before. The way a man scans who has done this enough that the scanning is no longer a decision, but a habit. Clear, Martin said. Let's walk. They walked. The sedan was parked about 30 feet down the block, facing east, which Nathan noticed was the opposite direction from the way the morning traffic was flowing. Martin had parked to drive away, not to arrive. Elena got into the back seat passenger side. Nathan got into the front passenger seat because Martin had nodded at it without saying anything. Martin got behind the wheel and closed his door quietly and put the key in the ignition, but did not start the engine, not yet. He sat there for about 10 seconds, watching the street in the side mirror, and Nathan made himself not watch him watch, and instead listened to Elena's breathing in the back seat, which was steadier than it had been last night, but only just. Martin started the engine. They pulled away from the curb. The route he took did not make sense unless you knew what he was doing. He turned right when the straight line would have been faster. He went through the old industrial part of the waterfront where the cobblestones made the tires thrum, and there were long sight lines between the warehouses. He doubled back once, for no reason Nathan could see, and sat at a red light for a full cycle without moving when the light turned green until the man behind them honked, and then Martin rolled through on the yellow and watched his rear view until he was satisfied. Anybody on us? Nathan asked quietly. Nope, but I don't go to the office by the right road, not with her in the car. Elena from the back said, You think they know about Hollis? I think that by this time tomorrow, if they don't already, they will. Today is the window. That's why we're going now. They drove the rest of the way without talking much. At one point, Elena asked if she could call her mother, and Martin said, gently but absolutely, Not yet. Later today. From my phone, not yours. Hollis will tell you what to say. Elena nodded and did not ask again. At 8:29, the sedan pulled up in front of a brownstone on a quiet, tree-lined block in downtown Brooklyn. The street was narrow and old, and the building had a small brass plaque next to its door that read, in letters small enough that you had to be looking for it, Hollis and Associates. There was a single man on the sidewalk across the way, walking a beagle. The beagle was sniffing a tree. Nathan watched them for a few seconds. The man seemed to be a man walking a beagle, Martin watched the same man walk the same dog for the same length of time, and then said, "He's fine. That's Mr. Brody. He lives in the building across from Hollis's. His wife is a judge. He walks that dog at the same time every morning. If he ever isn't there, that is when I start worrying." They got out. Martin opened the door of the brownstone with a key, which surprised Nathan for a second, and then didn't. Inside, the place smelled like old wood and coffee, and a woman's perfume from about 30 years ago, something with rose and paper. The receptionist was not at the desk yet. There was a small waiting area with 2 leather couches and a coffee table stacked with magazines about architecture and sailing, and a framed black and white photograph on the wall of a woman Nathan had never seen before, but who looked somehow like the kind of person who would be photographed that way. Hollis came out of the back office before Martin had finished taking off his coat. She was shorter than Nathan had imagined, maybe 5'2", and thin in a wiry, dense way, with short gunmetal gray hair cut close to her head and a pair of reading glasses hanging on a thin chain around her neck. She was wearing a navy blue dress and flat leather shoes that had clearly been chosen for a long day on her feet. She looked at Elena first, for a long second, and Nathan watched Elena stand up straighter without meaning to.
"Miss Cross," Hollis said. "Yes. Are you all right?" I don't know. I'm here. Here is a good place to be. Come with me. Mr. Reyes, coffee on, please. Mr. Hayes, there are magazines older than you on the coffee table. Help yourself." Nathan sat. Elena followed Hollis down a narrow hallway. A door closed. He heard their voices, muffled, and then he did not hear them anymore. He sat there for a long time. Around 9, the receptionist came in, a woman in her 40s with a warm face and tired eyes, and she took in Nathan without asking anything and just said, "You must be the cafe man." "I guess so. I'll get you a coffee." "Thank you." She brought him a coffee. He drank it slowly. He did not open any of the magazines. He sat with his hands on his knees, and he looked at the photograph on the wall, and he thought about his son, who by now was eating toast in Rosa's kitchen with the crusts cut off because Rosa was the only person in the world Caleb would let cut the crusts off his toast. And he thought about his mother, who did not know where he was. And he thought about Macy, who was opening his cafe without him. And he thought about the man in the dark jacket outside the bakery. And somewhere around 10:30, he must have dozed because he opened his eyes and Martin was sitting across from him with a paperback book open on his knee. "What time is it?" Nathan said. 11:10. You slept about 40 minutes. How's she doing in there?" "She's doing fine. Hollis has already called the 2 people she was going to call. One of them is on her way here now. The other one wants us at his office at 2. Things are moving." Nathan nodded. He sat up. He rubbed his face. "How long have you done this?" he said. "Been driving for Hollis. 14 years. How do you not go crazy?" Martin looked at him over the top of the paperback. "You don't carry the cases home," he said. "You carry the people home, and you put them down at their doors, and you walk away. That's the rule I use. I break it sometimes, but that's the rule. Hard rule. That's why it's a rule." The door at the end of the hall opened at 11:23. Elena came out first. Her face had color in it. She was still holding the folder, but Hollis was beside her now, and Hollis had a hand on her shoulder in a way that was not performative, just steadying, the way you put a hand on a horse that has been asked to stand still for a long time. "Nathan," Elena said, "I'm here. Can you come in?" He stood up. He followed them down the hall. The office at the end was larger than he expected, with tall windows and a big wooden desk, and a second smaller table in the corner where Elena's documents had been spread out in neat columns, annotated with little yellow flags. Hollis did not sit down. She stayed standing. So did Nathan. "Mr. Hayes," Hollis said. "Yes, ma'am." "Miss Cross has told me in some detail about last night. I have a few questions for you, and then I will have a harder one. Can you answer the questions first?" "Yes." "The man you saw outside the cafe. Describe him again." "White. About 6 feet tall, late 30s or early 40s, dark jacket with a hood down, Yankees cap, jeans, dark boots. He was pretending to be on a phone that was not turned on. His face was thin. He had some stubble, 2 or 3 days worth, not a full beard. He never made direct eye contact with me until he was across Manhattan Avenue from Deshawn's building, and at that point he looked straight at me for about 2 seconds. He did not look angry. He did not look nervous. He looked like a man being paid to do a job and doing it. Bam, Misansan.
Did you see a weapon?
No.
Did you see a bulge on his right hip under his jacket?
Nathan paused.
I don't know. I wasn't close enough to see a bulge, I assumed, because he kept his hand on that side in his pocket more than his left. Smart assumption. I don't know if it was right. That's fine. Last question on him. When you looked at him through the vestibule window and he looked back at you, did he do anything with his free hand? Nathan thought. He closed his eyes for a second. He could see the man again, the wired glass, the rain, the orange halo under the streetlight. The man had been standing under the bakery awning. His right hand had been in his pocket. His left hand had been, for a moment, up near his ear. He had a phone to his ear, Nathan said. A real one, this time. The second I saw him, his free hand came up. He was calling someone. Hollis looked at Martin, who had followed them in and was leaning against the wall by the door. Martin nodded, very slightly. That's what I thought, Hollis said. All right. Harder question, Mr. Hayes. Yes. You have a 5-year-old son. Yes. Where is he right now? With my neighbor, Rosa Delgado, in a building on Wyckoff Avenue, apartment 3B. Does anyone else know he is there? My mother. She's in Yonkers. My boss, Macy, who owns the cafe. And Rosa's granddaughter, who lives with her. Has any of those 4 people ever been in contact with anyone at Corbin Sterling Group? No. Have you ever done any work, in any capacity, that would put your name, Nathan Hayes, in a public record that ties you to that cafe, or to Deshaun Whitfield? Nathan thought. I'm on Macy's payroll. That's public in the sense that anything is public. I've done some repair work for Deshaun on the side for cash, but nothing on paper. My son's school forms have Macy's as an emergency contact because I don't have family in the city. Rosa is listed as an emergency contact. My mother is on the forms. Have you been arrested? Yes. When? I have 2 arrests from 2011 and 2013. Possession, I was using. No convictions. Diversion program the second time. I have not had any legal trouble since. I got sober in January of 2021. Hollis looked at him for a long moment. Her face did not change. Thank you for answering that straight, she said. I don't lie about it. Good. It doesn't matter to this case. It would only have mattered if you had lied. Here's my harder question, Mr. Hayes, and I want you to take your time. Last night you did a kind thing. You walked a woman home. You changed the destination when the walk became dangerous. You got her to Deshaun's apartment. Deshaun called me. Everything you did up to that point was the action of a decent man in a bad moment. From here on out, what Miss Cross does is the action of a witness in a federal matter. She is going to be in a different kind of danger for the next few weeks. Not fewer dangers, different ones. She does not need you for any of it. She has me and Martin and a team I will put together today. She does not need you. Do you understand? Yes. Good. My question is this. Why are you still here? Nathan did not answer right away. Elena had not sat down either. She was standing by the desk, her hand resting on the edge of it, watching him. The look on her face was one Nathan could not read, and he decided it was not his job to read it. I'm still here, he said slowly, because last night when she asked me if something was wrong, I had about 10 seconds to decide whether to be the kind of man who walks away from a question like that or the kind of man who doesn't. And I decided, and I don't get to undecide. That's the first reason. The second reason is that I have a son, and someday someone is going to ask him if he will help somebody, and the answer he gives is going to depend, I think, on what he has seen his father do. And the third reason is that I am not a man with a lot in my life. I have a boy and a job and a room above a dry cleaner, and I have a friend who makes tea in a crisis, and that is what I have. I don't have a lot of chances in this life to be useful to somebody the way I was useful last night. I'm not going to throw that chance away in the morning just because the part that felt like a movie is over and now the part that feels like paperwork is starting. That is my answer, ma'am. Hollis looked at him for a long moment. Sit down, Mr. Hayes, she said. He sat. Miss Cross, Hollis said. Sit. Elena sat. Hollis walked to the window. She stood with her back to them for a second. Then she turned. At 2 o'clock this afternoon, she said, Miss Cross and I are going to walk into a conference room on the 8th floor of a building in Lower Manhattan and sit down with 2 assistant United States attorneys and an agent from the FBI's white-collar unit. Before we do that, at 1:15, we're going to do a prep session with them over the phone, because they are going to want to know enough ahead of time to not waste the in-person. Between now and 1:15, we have to finish organizing what is on that table there. Miss Cross has been, as they say, cooperating in advance. The numbers are tighter than I hoped they would be. This is a strong case. This is, frankly, an embarrassingly strong case. And the reason it is embarrassingly strong is that Miss Cross is very good at her job, and the people who set this up were not as good at theirs as they thought they were. But, the people who set this up are not the ones who are dangerous. The ones who are dangerous are the ones the people who set this up called, when they realized that a 26-year-old accountant with a habit of noticing things was still noticing things. Those are the people outside the cafe and the bakery and the bodega. We have to assume, until we know otherwise, that those people are still looking, and that they will keep looking until Miss Cross is somewhere they cannot reach, and her testimony has been preserved in a form that cannot be undone by her disappearance. Do you both understand what I'm saying? Yes, Elena said. Yes, ma'am, Nathan said. Good. Mr. Hayes, you are not a witness. You are a bystander. Your legal exposure is 0. Your physical exposure, as of this moment, is higher than it was yesterday, because you were seen last night by a man whose employer is going to ask him a lot of questions this morning about what exactly he saw. They will figure out quickly who owns the cafe, because that information is not hidden. They will figure out, within a day or so, who the man was who walked her home. They will find out your name. They will find out you have a son. That is not a threat from me. That is a fact about how these things work. Before you decide anything else, you need to sit with that fact. You need to sit with it in a room alone for 10 minutes if you have to. Martin will take you down the hall to an empty office, and you can do that now, or you can do it on the sidewalk, or you can do it tonight. I do not need an answer from you right now about whether you are still here tomorrow. I need an answer about what you want to do today. Because today, the first thing we need to do for your son is make a phone call to your mother in Yonkers and tell her that she is going to get a visit in about 90 minutes from a retired police officer named Teresa, who works with me on things like this, and that Teresa is going to be very nice to her and very clear with her, and is going to help her pack a bag for herself and your boy and move both of them to a house my firm has access to in Rockland County for a few days until we know what we're dealing with. The boy will miss a few days of school. The school will be told he is sick. You will be able to call him in the evenings. You will not be able to see him in person until we say it is safe, and that may be Friday or Saturday or next week. That part I do not know yet. What I need from you is a yes or a no. Nathan felt something cold go through him, and then, in its place, something steady and hot. Yes, he said. Good. I'll call my mother now. Martin will give you the number for Teresa before you do, so your mother can tell Teresa on the phone what she needs to pack. Your mother is going to be scared, that is all right. Your mother is going to be angry, that is also all right. Your mother may say things to you that neither of you will enjoy. Get through it. You can apologize to each other later. Yes. Hollis looked at Elena. Her face, when she looked at Elena, was different than it had been when she looked at Nathan. It was still tough, but there was something behind it that was very close to tenderness. Miss Cross? Yes. You did everything right. From the moment you saw the first invoice, through the moment you sat down on a couch in a stranger's apartment last night. You did not do any of the small wrong things that people in your position usually do. You did not confront anyone with a raised voice. You did not post anything online. You did not call your mother before you called a lawyer. You made copies, not downloads. You trusted one stranger, and that stranger turned out to be the right one. By the end of this week, you are going to be the best witness the Southern District of New York has seen in a corporate case in 5 years. I do not say that lightly. I do not say that often. I am saying it now because I want you to carry it with you this afternoon when you walk into that building, and I want you to say to yourself, when you are nervous, Hollis said I'm the best one they've seen in 5 years, and I know Hollis does not lie about work. Elena's eyes filled again. This time she let a tear go, and she did not bother to wipe it. Okay, she said. All right. Mr. Reyes, call Teresa. Mr. Hayes, use the phone on the small desk in the hall. Miss Cross, come with me. We have 2 hours to make you ready. It all moved after that, the way a hospital moves when a patient has been stabilized, and everyone can finally start doing the slower, more careful work that the crisis had been keeping them from. Nathan went out into the hall and sat at a small desk and called his mother. The conversation lasted 19 minutes. At minute 7, his mother cried. At minute 11, she yelled at him. At minute 14, she asked him, for the first time since he got sober, whether he was using again. And when he said, "No, really, no, this is not that," she believed him, and he heard her believe him, and something in his chest loosened that had been tight for longer than he had realized. At minute 17, he put Teresa on the line through a 3-way call Martin had set up for him, and his mother and Teresa spoke to each other in the tones of 2 women who had raised difficult children, and by the end of the call, his mother was saying, "All right, dear," to Teresa, which meant it was going to be fine. At 12:30, Martin brought sandwiches in from the deli on the corner. They ate in Hollis's office at the big desk, around Elena's documents, which had been moved into labeled binders now. Elena ate half a turkey sandwich and drank an entire bottle of water. Hollis ate 2 bites of a salad and then stood up and said, "All right, children, put on your adult faces. We have a phone call to make." Martin and Nathan went to the waiting area. The door closed. At 1:50, they came out. Elena looked pale, but she looked ready. "How did it go?" Nathan said. "They won everything." "Is that good?" "It's good." Martin drove them to Manhattan. Nathan sat in the front seat. Elena sat in the back with her hand resting lightly on the binder next to her, the one that held the sum of 3 weeks of her life. At the corner of Canal and Broadway, a taxi nearly sideswiped them, and Martin did not react except to shake his head once, the way a man shakes his head at weather. At the mouth of the Federal Building's garage, they were waved through by a uniformed officer who looked at Elena and then looked at Hollis in the seat beside her and said, "Good afternoon, counselor," in a voice that told Nathan this was not the first time Hollis had driven through that gate. In the garage, they got out. Hollis led the way. Elena walked beside her with the binder in both hands, flat against her body, the way Martin had told her to. At the elevator, Hollis turned to Nathan. "Mr. Hayes, this is where you get off." "I know. Martin will take you back to Brooklyn. Your son and your mother will be at the house in Rockland by 4. You will be able to speak to them by 7. I will call you personally tonight, from a number you can save, and I will tell you how the afternoon went. You did a thing last night. You are doing a thing today. Take the evening to understand that." "Yes, ma'am." Hollis turned to the elevator and put her hand on the button, but did not press it yet. Elena turned. She did not say anything for a second. Then she stepped out of the group and crossed the 3 feet between herself and Nathan, and she put her arms around him, not for long, not in a way that made a moment of itself, just for the length of one slow breath, and she said into the collar of his coat, so quietly that only he could hear, "Go hug your boy when you see him. Do it twice, once for him and once for me." "I will," Nathan said. She stepped back. She turned. She got into the elevator with Hollis. The doors slid closed. Nathan stood there for a second, looking at the metal of the closed elevator doors. And then he turned and he walked back with Martin to the car. And he did not look back. And Martin did not say anything. And the 2 of them got in the sedan and pulled out of the garage and into the long gray afternoon of a city that was about to hear a very old story for what felt like the first time. Martin did not take the bridge. He took the tunnel, because the tunnel gave him a different set of cameras to be photographed by than the bridge did, and because at 2:30 in the afternoon the bridge had cops on foot at the Brooklyn side asking questions that the tunnel did not ask. Nathan watched the tiled walls of the tunnel blur past and felt, for the first time since the night before, the specific kind of tiredness that is not about sleep. It was the tiredness of having held himself at attention for 16 hours and only now being allowed to relax one muscle at a time. "You all right?" Martin said. "I'm fine." "You're not fine, but you're functional." "That works." Martin drove him to a diner on Atlantic Avenue that Nathan had never been to before and would not have chosen if he had been driving himself, which was exactly the point. He parked around the back. They went in through a side door that said "Employees Only," and that Martin opened with the confidence of a man who had done it a few times before. A waitress, who looked like she had worked there since the Carter administration, nodded at Martin without smiling and pointed at a booth in the corner, the one that did not face the window. Eat something real this time, Martin said. Hollis's rules. I'll eat if you eat. I'm going to eat. I'm a big man, Nathan. I don't skip meals. They ordered. Martin ordered a cheeseburger and a bowl of soup, which Nathan had not known a person could do in one sitting. Nathan ordered eggs because his stomach had not figured out what time of day it was, and because eggs were what he made for Caleb on Saturday mornings. And something in him needed to eat a thing his son would eat. When the food came, Nathan picked up his fork and realized his hand was, at last, shaking, a fine, small tremor that he had not let himself have all morning. He set the fork down. He put both his hands flat on the table for a second. He breathed. Martin did not look at him. Martin was cutting his cheeseburger in half with a knife, slowly, the way a man cuts something, not because it needs cutting, but because he knows the person across from him needs a second. First time you save somebody, Martin said, the shaking comes after. This isn't the first time. The EMT work. Yeah, that's different. When you're on the job, you got the uniform between you and what's happening. Last night, you didn't have that. You had a coat and an umbrella and a choice. Yeah. Eat. Nathan ate. The eggs were salty and overcooked. He ate them anyway. Halfway through, he realized he had not called Macy back, and he texted her. Within a minute, she texted back in her single run-on style. Eat, don't think, call. Later, don't worry about cafe. Caleb is safer than you right now. Love you, kid. He showed the phone to Martin. Martin read it and laughed. I'd like to meet this lady. You would get along. By the time they were done, it was 4. Martin made a phone call from the booth, low and short. He hung up. They're at the house, he said. Your mother and your boy. Teresa drove them up herself. Your mother gave her a cookie when they pulled into the driveway. Your boy fell asleep in the car halfway there. He's awake now. He wants to know where the dog is. Teresa told him there's no dog. He's taking it hard. Nathan laughed. He did not mean to. The laugh came out of him the way a cough comes out, involuntary and a little painful. He has been asking me for a dog for 8 months. I got that sense. Martin dropped Nathan at Deshawn's place at 4:30. He did not park. He double parked, flashers on, and leaned across the seat. Stay indoors tonight. Don't go back to your apartment, not even for clothes. Deshawn has a spare t-shirt that will fit you. Hollis will call at 7. I'll be on her. If anything changes, you'll hear from either of us. You have my number now. I do. Go. Nathan went. He climbed the stairs of Deshawn's building slowly, his legs feeling for the first time the weight of the previous night in them. Deshawn was at the door before Nathan had finished knocking. He had a dish towel over his shoulder and the smell of onions on his hands. Get in here. You look like a man who lost a fight with a Tuesday. It's Thursday. That's even worse. Deshawn had made chili. He had made it, he said, because chili was what his mother made when somebody in the house had been through something, and he didn't have a lot of other traditions from her that he still kept, but he kept this one. They ate at the little table by the window. Nathan sat in the same chair Elena had sat in that morning, and he thought about the fact that she had been here 12 hours ago eating a plain croissant with hands that were trembling, and was now somewhere in a federal building in Manhattan answering questions she had been preparing to answer alone in the dark for 3 weeks. At 6:58, Nathan's phone rang. It was a number he did not recognize. He put it on speaker and set it on the table between them. This is Nathan. Mr. Hayes, this is Hollis. Yes, ma'am. Miss Cross is safe. She is currently at a location I am not going to name on this call, with 2 members of the U.S. Attorney's team and 1 of mine. She asked me to tell you that she is all right. She ate. She is going to sleep somewhere clean tonight. Tomorrow morning at 9, she will be back in front of the same people, and they will continue the conversation they started this afternoon. It went very well. Very well is me being cautious. It went, in the exact words of one of the AUSAs on the line, and I am quoting him, better than any of us had a right to expect. Nathan closed his eyes. He let his head fall forward for a second. Deshawn reached across the table and squeezed his forearm once, hard, and let go. Thank you, Nathan said. You will be pleased to hear that at approximately 3:40 this afternoon, while Miss Cross was still in her first session, a federal magistrate judge signed 2 search warrants at the request of the U.S. Attorney. The first was for the offices of Corbin Sterling Group. The second was for the residence of Vivian Corbin Pell, who is, as you may recall, the company's chief financial officer. Both warrants were executed at approximately 5 p.m. this evening. I am told both executions were, in the words of the lead agent, uneventful. I am also told that the material recovered matches what Miss Cross provided us this morning, which is what we hoped, and more besides, which is what we hoped for but did not count on. So it's real, Nathan said. It was always real, Mr. Hayes. Tonight, it is also on the record. The guy from last night. We have reason to believe the man you saw outside the cafe is an individual who does occasional contract work for a private security firm that also does occasional contract work for a relative of the Corbin family. We have given his description and the photograph from your friend Deshawn's vestibule camera, which I assume you did not know existed, to the FBI. I am told he is a person of some interest to them for reasons that predate this matter. That is all I can say about him tonight. He is not your problem. He was never your problem. He was a man being paid, and the people who were paying him no longer have the freedom this evening to pay anyone. My son. Your son will be home by Sunday. That is my current estimate. Your mother may choose to stay at the house a few extra days because I am told she has already decided the kitchen in Rockland is superior to the kitchen in Yonkers, and she is making plans. Teresa has asked me for combat pay. Nathan laughed. A short, wet laugh. Deshawn, across the table, was laughing too, quietly, shaking his head. Hollis, Nathan said. Yes. Can I speak to her? Not tonight, tomorrow. She is asleep. She went to sleep 40 minutes ago, in her clothes, on a couch. She has not slept in 3 weeks, Mr. Hayes. Not really. Tonight she is sleeping. I am not going to wake her up, not even for you. I will have her call you tomorrow afternoon after her second session. Of course. Get some rest. Eat. You sound like a man who has not eaten. I ate chili. Good. Chili counts. She hung up. Nathan and Deshawn sat there for a minute without saying anything. The apartment had the quiet of a place where something that had been held very tight was finally, slowly, letting go. You got a camera in the vestibule, Nathan said. I got a camera in the vestibule. Since when? Since about 6 years ago. I had to replace a lock 3 times in 1 month and I got tired of replacing it. You never told me. You never broke in. Fair. That night Nathan slept in Deshawn's chair again. Not because he was afraid to leave, but because he did not want to be alone. Deshawn understood. The way Deshawn understood most things, without requiring them to be said. Around midnight, Nathan woke up, and Deshawn was also awake, sitting on the couch with a cup of tea, and the two of them sat there for an hour in the half-light, not talking, listening to the radiator and the occasional car outside. And Nathan thought that there was a kind of quiet you could only share with a person who had seen something with you, and that a man who had one such person in his life was not a man who could call himself alone. Not really, not honestly. The next morning, he went back to the cafe. Macy took one look at him, crossed the floor, hugged him hard enough that he felt something in his back pop, and then slapped his shoulder and told him to stop making dramatic faces and start the espresso machine. He started the espresso machine. The morning rush came in. He made flat whites and cortados and poured drip coffee, and he smiled at the regulars. And nobody who came in that morning had any way of knowing that the man behind the counter was running on 3 hours of real sleep and the kind of adrenaline that does not leave the body when the danger does. It only settles somewhere under the ribs and stays there for a few days, reminding you it exists whenever you reach for a coffee filter too fast. Around 2 in the afternoon, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. Hello? Nathan. It was her voice, steadier than yesterday. Tired, still, but steadier. Elena, I only have a few minutes. They're giving me a lunch break. I wanted to hear your voice. Are you all right? I'm all right. I'm so tired, Nathan. I've been answering questions since 8. I'm going to answer questions until 5. They are very nice, actually. One of them brought me a scone. A scone? A scone. I didn't ask for a scone. He just appeared with one. His name is Greg, and he's from Pittsburgh, and he has 3 daughters. Good to know. Nathan. Yeah. They caught them. Not all of them. Not yet. But they caught Vivian. They caught her last night. She was in her apartment. She answered the door herself. She had her coat on. She was, Hollis told me this morning, about to leave. Leave for where? Nobody knows yet, or nobody's telling me, but she had a bag packed. It was in the front hall. They asked her whose name was on the ticket, and she said no ticket, just going to visit a friend. And then they showed her the warrant, and she sat down on the floor of her own foyer and did not move for a long time. Jesus. Yeah. Nathan leaned against the back counter. Macy had turned on the little radio she kept near the register, and something was playing softly, an old song he half recognized, and a woman at the counter was waiting patiently for her latte, and he watched Macy make it herself, waving him off, because Macy could read a phone call the way some people could read a face. Caleb, Elena said, he's with my mother, upstate, safe. Good. He wants a dog. Elena made a sound that was halfway between a laugh and a sob. Tell him, she said, that if his dad will let him, I will come with him to pick one out. When this is over, I owe him that. I owe you a lot more, but I can start with that. Elena. Yeah. Don't make promises from a conference room on a lunch break. Make them when you're tired in a real way, on a real couch, in a real afternoon. I'm not going anywhere. She was quiet for a second. Okay, she said. Okay, I'll make it then. Go back in there, answer the rest of their questions, eat the scone. I ate the scone already. Eat another one. Bye, Nathan. Bye. She hung up. He stood there holding the phone. Macy slid the latte across the counter to the waiting woman, glanced at him, and said, without looking at anyone in particular, The espresso machine is fine, Nate. Go sit down for 5 minutes. He sat down for 5 minutes. That afternoon, the cafe filled up again, because it was Friday, and people in the neighborhood liked to drink coffee and look out at the street after the long week. At 4, a reporter came in. A woman in her 30s with a notebook and a press ID clipped to her coat and an apologetic, slightly hopeful face. She ordered an Americano, and then she said quietly, so that nobody else could hear, Are you Nathan Hayes? He looked at her. I am. My name is Rachel Ortiz. I work for the Times. A story is going to run tomorrow about Corbin Sterling Group and the arrests and the young woman who brought it forward. Her name is not in the story. She asked to be kept out of it for as long as possible, and her lawyer has been very good about making sure that happened. But there is a small detail in the story. A cafe in Brooklyn. A man who walked her through the rain. I am not going to print your name. I'm not going to print the name of this cafe. I just wanted to ask you, if you are willing, one question, off the record. Nothing goes in the paper. Okay? Why did you do it? Nathan looked at her for a second. He thought about his sister. He thought about a little boy upstate who wanted a dog. He thought about a woman asleep on his friend's couch the night before last, and a manila folder flat against her chest, and a man across the street under a bakery awning. She asked, he said. The reporter waited. That's it, Nathan said. She asked, and nobody had asked me for anything real in a long time, so I said yes. Rachel Ortiz wrote nothing down. She nodded. She picked up her coffee. She left a $10 bill on the counter for a $4 drink and walked out without waiting for change. At the door, she turned. For what it's worth, Mr. Hayes, she said, I hope somebody says yes to you sometime, the way you said yes to her. Then she was gone, and the door jingled shut, and the late afternoon light through the front window turned the tables a particular gold color that Nathan had always liked. And Macy, behind him, said quietly, Your eyes are wet, kid. Are they? They are. It's fine. Wipe them and come make me a cortado. I'm dying here. He wiped them. He made her a cortado. The afternoon kept moving. On Saturday morning, Nathan's mother called. Caleb was on the phone. Caleb wanted to tell his father, in some detail, about a squirrel he had seen from the back porch of the house in Rockland, and about a game he had invented with his grandmother involving a spatula and a couch cushion, and about the fact that he had decided, after much thought, that when he came home he would like to go to the cafe and sit in the big chair by the window where he always sat, and he would like his dad to make him a hot chocolate with, and this was important, a specific number of marshmallows, which was 5, not 4 and not 6. And did Dad understand that 5 was the correct number? Dad understood. Caleb said he loved him and handed the phone back to his grandmother without ceremony. Nathan's mother was quiet for a second. Nate. Yeah, Ma. You did right. Ma. Don't interrupt me. I'm saying something. You did right. Your sister would have been proud of you. I am proud of you. Bring me my grandson back on Sunday and I will make chicken and I will not yell at you for a whole Sunday. That is my gift. Ma, that is a big gift. Don't I know it? She hung up. Nathan put the phone down on the counter of the cafe and stood there for a second looking at it, and he realized that he was grinning and that the grin was doing something strange to his face, stretching a set of muscles he had not been stretching, and he decided he did not mind. On Sunday afternoon at 3:12, a sedan he did not recognize pulled up in front of the cafe, and Martin got out of the driver's seat, and his mother got out of the back, and then, after a second, a small figure in a blue coat with a dinosaur patch on the sleeve got out of the back seat on the other side, and Caleb Hayes stood on the sidewalk of his own neighborhood and looked through the window of the cafe at his father, and his father, inside the cafe, set down a coffee cup very carefully on the counter and came around the counter and walked to the door. He did not run, not in front of his son. 5-year-olds notice when their parents run. He opened the door. He went down the 2 steps. He crouched down on the wet sidewalk. Hey, bud. Dad. Caleb walked into his father's arms the way Caleb always walked into his father's arms, which was with the absolute unquestioning confidence of a child who had never in his life doubted that his father's arms would be open when he needed them to be. Nathan hugged him. He hugged him the way Elena had asked him to once, and then he hugged him again, a second time, for the second reason, and he did not explain to his son why he was hugging him twice because his son was 5, and his son did not need an explanation. His son only needed the hug. Did you bring my dinosaur blanket back? Nathan said into his son's hair. Grandma has it. She said it needed a wash. Grandma is right. Dad. Yeah, bud. Can I have a hot chocolate with 5 marshmallows? Yes, you can. Nathan stood up. He held his son's hand. His mother came up onto the sidewalk and Nathan hugged her too, and she let him for longer than she usually would. And then she pushed him off and said, Don't make a scene. I'm tired. And Nathan laughed, and they all went into the cafe together, and Macy, behind the counter, made a small sound that was almost a cry, and then covered it by loudly demanding to know who this handsome young man was, and whether he had been replaced because the last one she remembered was smaller. Caleb climbed into the big chair by the window. Nathan made him a hot chocolate and counted 5 marshmallows out loud so that his son could count along and verify. His mother sat at the counter and ordered a coffee and corrected Macy's grammar on a chalkboard sign, and Macy let her, because Macy had decided 5 minutes after meeting his mother that she liked her. Martin stood by the door for a moment, nodded at Nathan once, and then quietly left. It was not a movie ending. Nothing was resolved. Elena was still in a building somewhere downtown, giving a different answer to the same question for the 4th time. Vivian Corbin Pell was in a courtroom somewhere being arraigned on charges that would keep lawyers fed for years. The man in the dark jacket was, presumably, somewhere, doing whatever such men did when the money stopped. The world had not become safer. It had only, in this one small corner of it, on a Sunday afternoon in a cafe on a Brooklyn street, become warmer. Nathan watched his son count marshmallows with great concentration. He watched his mother lean across the counter to argue with Macy about the proper use of a semicolon. He watched the light through the front window shift as the afternoon moved toward evening, and he thought that, a week ago, he had been a man who believed his life was too small to matter, and that, whatever the next week brought, and the week after that, and the month after that, he was not that man anymore, because a woman in a tan coat had sat in his cafe for 3 hours and then asked him, in a voice barely louder than the rain, if he would walk her home. And he had said yes. And the saying of it, it turned out, had been the largest thing he had ever done. Outside, it began, very gently, to rain again. Nathan looked at it through the window, and for the first time in his life, he did not think of rain as something he had to get through. He thought of it as something that, for one unlikely evening, had brought him exactly where he needed to be. The rain that started that Sunday afternoon kept coming and going for most of the next 2 weeks, the way Brooklyn rain does in late fall, never quite committing to a full storm, but never really stopping either. Elena came back to the cafe on a Wednesday. She did not come in dramatically. She came in at 4 in the afternoon wearing a different coat than the one she had been wearing that night, a navy one with the collar turned up. And she stood in the doorway for half a second looking at Nathan behind the counter, and Nathan looked back and neither of them said anything because the moment did not require anything. She ordered a small black coffee. This time she drank it. She sat in the same window seat for about an hour. Caleb was there, doing homework at the next table because Rosa had a doctor's appointment. And at some point, Caleb looked up and said, without any of the careful shyness most kids use with strangers, "Are you the lady my dad helped?" And Elena, who had been prepared for many questions that afternoon, but not that one, set down her cup and looked at the boy and said, very seriously, "He helped me a lot, yeah." And Caleb nodded, the way a judge nods, and said, "That sounds like him," and went back to his worksheet, and Nathan, behind the counter, had to turn around for a second and pretend to clean the steam wand. The case took a year to move through its first real phase, the way these things do. Vivian Corbin Pell pleaded out in the end, not because she wanted to, but because the paper trail Elena had built, by accident, by noticing things at a desk nobody had thought to watch, was the kind of paper trail that leaves a defense lawyer with very little to work with. 2 other people at the company pleaded out with her. One went to trial, lost, and appealed. The man in the dark jacket, whose name turned out to be boringly ordinary, a name that belonged in a phone book, took a deal on an unrelated matter and was never charged in connection with that night on Manhattan Avenue because, as Hollis explained to Nathan over a cup of tea in her office once, the law is not a story, and stories do not always end with every character accounted for. Nathan had thought about that for a long time afterward. He had decided she was right. Elena did not go back to Corbin Sterling. She went to work, eventually, for a small nonprofit that helped other whistleblowers, and she was not paid well, and she did not mind. She kept her apartment on Huron Street for another 6 months, and then gave it up because she had started, slowly, quietly, without either of them naming the thing, spending most of her evenings on Wyckoff Avenue in a small place above a dry cleaner that smelled like steam from 4 a.m. on, where a boy named Caleb kept his dinosaur blanket on the bottom bunk, and had, after much campaigning, been granted permission to get a dog, a scruffy rescue mutt of indeterminate heritage whom he named, against all adult counsel, Spaghetti. Nathan did not propose. He was not the proposing kind, and Elena was not the waiting kind. They talked about it one evening at the kitchen table after Caleb was asleep, and Elena said, "I don't need a ring. I need to know you're not going anywhere." And Nathan said, "I told you that in Hollis's office a year ago. I'm telling you again now. I'm not going anywhere." And that was more or less the wedding. Deshawn was there. Macy was there. Martin drove up from Jersey for it, and Hollis, who did not do parties, came for exactly 45 minutes and left a check in an envelope on the counter that Nathan and Elena tried 3 times to give back and finally just used to pay off the last of Elena's student loans. Because Hollis, when they called her, said, in her smoke-rough voice, "If I wanted it back, I wouldn't have left it. Don't be children about it. The cafe is still there. Nathan still opens on weekday mornings. Macy has finally replaced the bulbs. The awning has been repaired. There is a new sign on the window, in a little corner near the bottom, that reads, in Caleb's handwriting, which is now 7.5 years old, "Best hot chocolate on the block." Nathan leaves it there, even though he knows the handwriting is crooked. What Nathan thinks, when he thinks about that night at all, is this. He used to believe that the shape of a life was decided by the big doors, the ones you walk through with your whole chest forward, the jobs, the marriages, the diagnoses, the losses. He does not believe that anymore. He believes now that the shape of a life is decided mostly by the small doors, the ones you almost do not open. A woman in a tan coat asking a quiet question. A friend buzzing you in at 8 o'clock on a rainy Wednesday. A mother picking up the phone. A son asking for 5 marshmallows instead of 4. The big doors you walk through, and you know you walked through them. The small ones you walk through without noticing, and only years later, standing in the warm light of a cafe that smells like espresso and wet coats. Do you understand that those were the doors? He was not a hero. He was a tired man who said yes. She was not a damsel. She was a woman who had already saved herself and only needed a stranger to believe her for the last 8 blocks. What passed between them that night was not magic. It was attention. It was the willingness on both sides to look at another person and not look away. That, Nathan has decided, is most of what love turns out to be. Not a grand thing, a steady thing. Someone across a counter, someone across a table, someone across a room on a rainy evening who lifts their head when you speak and does not pretend they did not hear you. The rain still comes some nights the way it came that night. Nathan still closes the cafe most nights the way he closed it then. But when he turns the key in the lock and steps out under the awning, there is a light on in a window 6 blocks away, and a dog that answers to a ridiculous name, and a boy who is no longer 5 and a woman who is no longer running, and a life he did not, a year and a half ago, think he was allowed to have. He walks home through the rain. He does not need an umbrella most of the time anymore. The rain is only rain now. It is not a thing he has to survive. It is, he has finally learned, just the weather a person walks through on the way to the people who are waiting for him.